I have been trying for 3 freaking weeks to get this to work correctly, and in the process, I think I have made every freaking mistake that you could make while setting up a compass with iNav. I want you to be with me while we test it out and see if I finally fixed it. Yes, you don't know why, but the fact that the 2 numbers are roughly lining up correctly is good. It means things are working. You'll learn why by the end of the video. Position hold in 3, 2, 1, go. Yes, it's position holding. Freaking yes! And return to home. It's working. It's freaking working. I freaking did it. I freaking did it. Oh, I gotta land. This is my iFlight Chimera 7 Pro. And I recently converted it from Betaflight firmware, which is really good at acro flying and racing, over to iNav firmware, which is really good at the type of GPS-assisted autonomous flying that a 7-inch long-range cruiser is supposed to be good at. But when I tried to do the kind of long-range GPS-assisted autonomous flying that it's supposed to be good at, it wasn't. In fact, it was really bad at it. We're going to enter cruise mode. What the F is that? That was weird. Let's try it again. Cruise. What is it doing? It's whacked out. Let's try pause hold. What are you doing? That's not pause hold either. The reason that my iNav quadcopter flew so freaking bad in any of the GPS-assisted modes doesn't actually have anything to do with the GPS at all. It has to do with the compass. And if you set up an iNav bird and you don't know how to get the compass working right, and especially if you're coming from Betaflight, where the bird was, Betaflight doesn't use it. I mean, it kind of uses the compass, but it doesn't really use the compass that much. And that's why Betaflight is so bad. Well, one of the reasons why it's so bad at GPS-assisted flight. If you're coming to iNav, you need to set the compass up right. And the instructions I gave you in the previous video, where we calibrated and we aligned the compass, that's not enough. There's more you got to do to get your compass working right with iNav, and that's what we're going to do in this video. I'm Joshua Bardwell. You're going to learn something today. Before I show you how I got my compass working right, I want to show you how I recognized that my compass isn't working right. Because, especially as I'm not that experienced with iNav, I wasn't really clear on what is like a normal variation and what is, whoa, that's crazy. In order to demonstrate this, I've got this quadcopter just sitting still, and the compass is reading 341 degrees. And it should stand to reason that as long as the quadcopter doesn't move, that heading shouldn't change. But if I just take this battery and plug it in, and then I place this battery on the top plate in its intended location, what is happening to our heading? It's going crazy. It's down to 315 degrees, 314 degrees, 312 degrees, 311 degrees. It's, who knows where it's going to stop. I've seen compasses swing as much as 180 degrees. And so the first thing you need to check in order to tell if your compass is working right is the compass moving when the quadcopter isn't actually moving? And if it is, something ain't right. What isn't right? More about that in a minute. And that same test is going to hold true when we actually try to fly the quad. So right now we're facing roughly somewhere between north and east, but if I arm the quad, do you see that I'm not even moving and the compass is starting to shift? And if I take off and fly, if I fly in a straight line, I shouldn't see any movement of the compass. And yet, as I raise the throttle, you see that the compass shifts, even though the quadcopter is not shifting really at all. In order to make sure that your compass is working correctly, number 1, set the quadcopter down, plug in the battery, and look at the compass. And you've already checked the alignment of the compass, so if it says it's facing north, it should be facing north. But the number 1 thing you're going to look for is not the alignment itself, but the stability. If the quadcopter is sitting still and the compass is slowly drifting, even a small amount, that's a problem, and it means that your quad isn't going to fly right in the GPS assisted modes. My mistake was thinking that, oh, well, maybe a little bit of drift is normal. It's not. If the quadcopter is sitting still and the compass is stable, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to arm the quadcopter and frankly, don't even take off. I've seen situations where because of the particular quadcopter in question, the compass swung around almost 180 degrees simply while sitting there with the motors idling. If you arm and the motors spin and the compass is still stable, then take off. And what you can do is you can do a simple throttle ramp. You don't have to do like a big throttle punch. Just do a slow throttle ramp, maybe 5 seconds or so. Make sure you're not hitting the yaw axis at all. And if you see the compass go whoop, as the throttle goes up and down, again, you have a problem that you're going to need to solve. If you find that the compass is perfectly stable under all conditions, then you're ready to fly. But if you don't find that, what do you do next? That's what the rest of this video is going to be about, solving that problem. And in order to solve the problem, we have to understand why it happens. It turns out it's really simple. And if you are an experienced iNav person, also really freaking obvious. You're like, Bardwell, get to the point. But it was kind of news to me because I'm new to some of this. This right here is the cause of all of our problems. Not just the battery, but the wires specifically. You see, the compass is measuring electromagnetic fields, and the Earth makes electromagnetic fields, but so do a lot of other things. And anytime you have current flowing in a wire, you also have an electromagnetic field. In fact, that's how radios work. An antenna is just a wire, and the radio puts an electric current into the wire, and it radiates electromagnetic fields. Crossfire, Express LRS, Wi-Fi, all of that stuff is just current flowing in a wire emanating a magnetic field. Now, the magnetic fields that our battery wires are giving off are nowhere near as complicated as all those other things that I talked about, but they do exist. And it means that if the battery is anywhere near the compass, it will throw the compass off. And the amount by which it throws the compass off is going to depend on how much current is flowing. So it's not even like you could easily just calibrate it out. You calibrate the compass with the quadcopter sitting still or at idle or disarmed, and then as soon as you start flying, it all changes, and that's why things get screwed up. So honestly, this quadcopter was kind of screwed from the beginning. Like, the XT60 is always going to plug in here, and this is always going to be super close to the compass. There's really no way to fix this problem. This quadcopter, well, I'm not going to go so far as to say that the Chimera Pro simply was not designed to work correctly with iNav, because somewhere out there someone's using iNav and someone from iFlight is going to jump on me and be like, you're maligning our product. But I don't see how this quadcopter, which by the way ships with Betaflight, could ever really work with iNav correctly, because the compass is just never going to work right being this close to the XT60. The number one thing you can do to fix this problem is to relocate your compass, your GPS, to be away from the battery, or vice versa, relocate your battery to be away from the compass. The guideline that is given by the iNav developers is that you want a minimum of 2 inches of spacing between any of the XT60 wires, the XT60 itself, and the compass. And you can see we're well within that range. Other people who say that as much as 6 inches is better. The strength of the magnetic field is going to drop off rapidly as the distance increases. So a little increase in distance is going to have a big effect. I've seen quadcopters where if you have the battery within maybe an inch of the compass, it doesn't fly really well at all. And if you move it just 2.5 inches maybe, or 3 inches, suddenly it's perfectly fine. In order to fix that in this situation, we would probably need to relocate the XT60, and I might just do that just to see if it's working correctly. There is another thing you need to be aware of, and that is the type of battery. So I don't know exactly why this is, but there is something about this style of battery that uses the round 18650 or 21700 cells that makes it worse. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I've observed, and I've talked to other people who say they've observed the same thing. With these batteries, it seems like you get more electromagnetic emanations from, like, maybe it's because in these batteries there are wires coming up here, or nickel strips or whatever they are. There's current flowing here through this part of the battery, whereas here in this battery, I don't know, it's like there's just current flowing inside the cells, of course, but the actual wires and stuff are up here at the end. Either way, the answer is move the battery as far from the compass or move the compass as far from the battery as you freaking can. I got to think about how I'm going to do that. But there's one other option that's been introduced in iNav 7.1, and it completely bypasses all of these problems. And the option that's been introduced in iNav 7.1 is to simply disable the compass. Yes, we're going to go into the configuration tab, and we're simply going to set the magnetometer to none. Now, if you know a thing or two about GPS-assisted flight, you're probably thinking right now, wait a minute, you need a compass in order to really do a good job at GPS-assisted flight. You need to know which direction the aircraft is facing so that then the aircraft can turn and fly home and so forth. But it turns out that's not as true as you might think it would be. You see, there is a thing called GPS track. Now, a GPS receiver doesn't know which direction you're facing. If you think about it, GPS gives you a position on the Earth. It doesn't give you a direction that you're facing. And that's why your phone and quadcopters and so forth all have a compass. The compass gives you the direction that you're facing. But what GPS does know is the direction that you're moving. If we just interpret the GPS track direction as if it was a compass reading, we can get a pretty good guess as to which direction the quadcopter is facing, and then we don't need a compass at all. Except there are some problems with this, and it's why until now, iNav has required an actual compass. Let's talk about what those problems are and how iNav has solved them. And the first problem is that unlike airplanes, multirotors don't always fly straight forward. They often do, but like in a multirotor, I could certainly just fly backwards. I can fly sideways. And you can see that if I'm flying backwards or flying sideways, then my GPS track direction is not going to accurately represent the direction that I'm facing. And that's only somewhat true. Generally, a multirotor, if you're flying forward, you can assume that we're facing in the direction you're moving. But with a multirotor, the GPS track is not as reliably going to align with the direction that the multirotor is facing. The other problem with the GPS heading or GPS track is that it doesn't update very frequently. You need relatively frequent compass updates in order to do a good job with autonomous flight. The GPS update typically 10 times per second, and that's just not fast enough. The way that iNav works around these limitations is through something called sensor fusion. And sensor fusion means that you take the output from several different sensors, like the GPS, the gyro, and the accelerometer, and you put them together and make them sort of greater than the sum of their parts. So, for example, if we've got the aircraft and the GPS track says that we're moving this direction, but iNav looks at the accelerometer and can tell that we're rolled over to the left, iNav can say, oh, I see. We're not moving this direction. We're actually moving. You see, it can compensate for the fact that we're not actually moving forward, and it can adjust the GPS heading to the correct direction. What about the fact that the GPS only updates 10 times a second? Well, iNav can look at the gyro. And so, for example, if I'm facing this direction or moving this direction, and then the gyro says that I turn to the right, well, I can just extrapolate from the gyro data what my new orientation must be. Sensor fusion is way more complicated than I'm making it out to be. That's okay. You don't need to worry about it. The takeaway is this. With iNav 7.1, you can disable the compass and still get a pretty accurate compass reading off the GPS. Not as accurate as if you had a compass. And in fact, you can put both of them on screen and compare them. In fact, we're just about to do that. But accurate enough that if you've got a quadcopter where you just can't get a good compass reading, maybe it's better than nothing to just turn off the compass and update to iNav 7.1. So how good is it? Well, that's what we're going to do next. We're just going to disable the compass. We're going to take this thing out and fly it and see if that fixes the problems that we've been having. Now we're going to do a test flight on this iNav 7.1 bird with magnetometer completely disabled. And if you look right here in my OSD, this right here is the GPS-based ground track, and that is the thing that is going to be incorrect when I am not flying straight forward. But right over here, this is the actual heading. And normally this would be filled in by the compass, but in iNav 7.1 with compass disabled, it's going to be, well, I don't know. Let's find out. Now at first, both of those values are going to be blank because we don't have a ground track until we start moving. But as soon as we start moving, and specifically when we move in a straight line for a little while, those values will fill in. Let's check it out. So now we're moving in a straight line, the ground track drops in, and immediately we have what appears to be a reasonable compass value. Now, if I fly sideways, that ground track is going to get very confused. Notice now there is a big difference between the compass and the ground track. The ground track hasn't changed. I am still tracking 140 degrees-ish, just like I was when I was flying like this. But if you look at the left one, you see the left one is actually tracking correctly the direction that I am actually pointing. And as soon as I start flying forward again, you'll see the GPS ground track will fill in on the right with the correct value. Normally, we could not do this. That left-hand number that shows the correct direction I am actually flying or facing, that wouldn't work without a compass or magnetometer. But thanks to iNav 7.1, it does. But how well does it work? How well does it work when I try to fly? I don't even remember how I've set this up. What do we got? Cruise mode, angle mode? No, hang on. What about this one? Oh, there we go. I have no idea what's happening. This is loiter, position hold. It is. And is it position holding? I'm not sure if it is. That does not look like a good position hold. No, that is garbage. That's not what a good position hold looks like. It should really just be completely locked in. We're going to do it out in this field. Like, are we position holding or are we toilet bowling? We're not position holding. We're definitely not returning to home. Let's try return to home. We'll get up to altitude and return to home, en route to home. Well, that's about right. It's still got some issues. Wow. It's kind of still... I wonder if we have an alignment problem. That's weird. It's not good. Do you see there's a big difference between the left-hand number, which is the actual heading, and the GPS ground track? They are way off, and that's why... When did they get off? How did they get off? I don't know. Oh, now they're in agreement again. The hell? And what about north facing? Yeah, that's just about due north. That's just about perfect due north. So now that they're in agreement, see, if I'm flying straight forward, the ground track and the heading indicator should be almost the same. There we go. Oh, there we go. That's a perfect position hold. And if I return to home, that's perfect. Why were they out of sync? I have no idea. This is working great though. iNav 7.1's new no compass needed feature does open up the possibility of having all these autonomous flight modes, position hold, return to home, etc., on quadcopters that either don't have a compass or that for some reason can't get a clean compass reading. This is especially true for smaller quadcopters where, because of the size of the quad, you just can't get the compass far enough away from all the other stuff to get a clean compass reading. So it does make it possible, but it's not perfect. As we saw in my video, if at the time I activate position hold, there is not a good agreement between the GPS ground track and the calculated heading, then it will get toilet bowling and all the other problems that happen when you don't have a good compass reading. So if you were doing some crazy flippy flops and then activated return to home, it probably wouldn't work. If you were flying into a big crosswind, causing your ground track to deviate from your heading, it might not work well. And the other thing to keep in mind is that even if it's working well at first, it will slowly lose precision or drift over time, which means that if we position hold with no compass, it's going to be perfect at first, and then after 3 or 4 or 5 or however many minutes, it's going to start to toilet bowl, and you'll need to actually sort of reset the ground track again. So it's a nice to have, but it's not the be-all end-all solution. The be-all end-all solution is to have a freaking working compass. And what I want to do now is show you how I actually fixed the compass on this quad and got the glorious rejoicing that you saw at the beginning of this video. And the first thing I want you to see is that I have repositioned the XT60 out the side of the quadcopter instead of the back of the quadcopter. And that means that it is much further away from the GPS and the compass, and the same thing is true for the battery. We make sure that we mount the battery with the wires coming out the front. They come around here, and the battery and the leads and so forth are nowhere near the compass. Well, they're as far away as they could possibly be. The other thing that I did was I repositioned the compass, and to do this I had to print a brand new compass mount. Thank you to my Bamboo X1C 3D printer. Just was able to wrap that off in like 20 minutes, and boom, I could try it out, and it worked. I also printed a new mount for the DJI antennas to kind of move them up and away from the GPS. And there's not that much difference. You might be thinking, well, it's not that much further away. But it turns out that even like a half an inch or an inch of difference can make a big difference in the performance of the GPS and the compass. And this was enough that it is now performing well. You will also see, and this is not directly related to the compass, I don't think, but I also put some foil tape around the GPS wires. I've been skeptical of this in the past, especially because the tape is not grounded. I couldn't solder a wire to it to ground it. I tried, it was just too thin. But I doubled the number of satellites that I was locking from like 7 to 9 to like 14 to whatever double that is, 14 to 18. I doubled the number of sats just by putting this foil tape on. The tape that I actually used is this. This is for taping like ductwork. And I just happened to have some out in my barn, and I tried it. You could probably just use aluminum foil, although it's a little bit thicker and it's going to take up a little more space. If you do this, be very careful that that is conductive. It'll short circuit things. So you may want to cover it with heat shrink, or you may want to make sure you route it in a way that it's not going to short anything out. Now, but these things, these steps, and one other meant that I had clean compass readings, and my bird just flew perfectly correctly. And I'm going to tell you what that final step was just as soon as I tell you about my Patreon. Patreon is a website where you can subscribe to me for as little as $2 a month, or more if you feel like I've earned it. Take the amount of value that you get. Did I just help you get your compass working? Well, the number one person you should support is the iNav dev, Pavel Spikowski, because almost everything I've showed you in this video, I learned from him. But if you feel like throwing a couple bucks my way, you can join my Patreon. It's the single best way to support the work that I do here. And I know all creators everywhere are asking you, buy my merch, sign up for my this, give me your money. And I'm just one of them, because this is my full-time job. And if you don't do it, eventually I'll have to stop making videos. And I don't want to do that. But if I haven't earned it yet, if you're like, yeah, okay, fast forward, that's fine. I'm going to keep making the content. I hope you keep watching the content. I hope you keep benefiting from it, and maybe the day will come. But if today's the day, there's a link in the video description to my Patreon, and I'd love to have you as a supporter. The final thing that I did wrong when setting up my compass and my GPS is that I didn't really fully understand how compass alignment and compass calibration works. And the first thing you need to know is that if you mount the compass with the arrow facing forward and right side up, almost all of the time the default setting in iNav will turn out to be correct. And the reason I didn't think that it was correct and was manually checking the orientation every time and then thinking the orientation was incorrect and chasing my tail and actually making things worse instead of making things better had to do with how I misunderstood. And in order to make that more clear, here is Joshua from the future to tell you how that works. In the past, I have taught that it's very, very important to calibrate the compass in order to get good readings. And anytime you change anything about the compass location or just the general sort of layout of the quadcopter, for example, moving the battery around, anytime you change anything that is nearby to the compass that would change its reading of the magnetic fields, you have to calibrate the compass. But it turns out there's one more thing that triggers compass calibration that I didn't know about, and that is any change to the compass alignment. So the way I thought that it works is you calibrate the compass, And the compass kind of knows that, okay, over here there's a magnetic field and over there there's a magnetic field. And if you then rotate the compass here in the alignment tool, I would assume that the software is smart enough that it can just take those calibration values and rotate them in the same way so that you don't have to recalibrate the compass. It turns out that's not true. It turns out that every time you change the compass alignment, you have to also recalibrate the compass. So in the past, I have calibrated, then aligned. Well, actually, I'm not sure about that. I might have been doing it right by accident, but I need to make it explicit here that if you change your compass alignment, you also need to redo the compass calibration. Thank you, Pavel Spikowski, the lead iNav developer, for setting me straight about that. The other thing that I didn't know is that the compass orientation depends on the flight controller orientation. So right now, this is the correct compass orientation for this compass. But if for some reason I was to change my flight controller orientation, do you see that the compass orientation also changes with the flight controller? And so you must, if for some reason you're not going to have your flight controller facing forward, you must first align the flight controller, then align the compass. And if you later change the flight controller orientation as the alignment tool shows, they will rotate together and you'll have to fix that. Experiences like this are simultaneously one of the most frustrating and rewarding in this hobby because it hurts to repeatedly bash your head against the wall of a problem that you don't know how to solve. But when you finally do break through that wall, then you know how to solve the problem. And I hope that I have learned all of the mistakes that I was making in setting up my iNav quad and getting the compass working correctly. And I hope that's all of them. And that going forward, I will just know how to do this. And I hope that you, by watching this video, also will know how to tell if your compass is working correctly. And then if it's not working correctly, see some good practices to get it working correctly. We're going to take a look at this last glorious flight one more time as we fly home with a correctly working compass, position, hold, etc. If you're interested in learning more about transitioning to iNav from Betaflight, I've got a playlist with my iNav tutorials in it. I'll link it in a card on screen and a link in the video description. There's only a couple videos in there now, but hopefully that will continue to expand. I'll see you there.